you ready to level up your backyard barbecue game? I have a mildly intermediate smoke for you today. This recipe is for a homemade pastrami. It is brined, it is seasoned, it is smoked, it is absolutely delicious, and it is totally possible for you to make this at home. And I gotta tell you, homemade is always better, but that's especially true with pastrami. So let's do it.
We're gonna kick things off by making a homemade brine. I use a blend of water and apple juice as the base. I think the apple juice brings just a little balance of sweetness to the overall brine. Of course, kosher salt goes in, as well as some brown sugar and pickling spice. I'm also using Prague powder or pink curing salt #1. Now I'm including the full written recipe and the volumes that I use in my recipe in the link below the video description, but I'm also going to include a link to a calculator that you can use based on the size of your meat and the volume of your liquid to calculate exactly how much of that curing salt you'll need. I bring my brine up to, room temperature heat, not boiling, enough to dissolve that brown sugar in the liquid, and then add ice to cool it down completely and hit the volume that I'm looking for. This goes into my brining bucket. I'm actually using my sous vide machine bucket that comes with that so that I can fit this big, nice brisket flat in there. Cover it with a bowl to weigh it down, and then it goes into the refrigerator for about 5 to 7 days, depending on how thick it is. You do want to turn that every day or so. Next up, we're going to make our spice rub blend. I'm toasting together peppercorns, whole coriander seeds, and whole mustard seeds until they smell nice and fragrant. It goes into my mortar and pestle and then gets pressed and lightly ground until most of those seeds are really broken apart and you can smell it. It's super, super fragrant. You can still see the integrity of the seeds themselves. It's not a totally fine powder, but it has a really nice texture and it really released all of the oils from those spices. We're gonna add in some garlic powder, some kosher salt, some smoked paprika, and some brown sugar, and that's gonna round out the overall flavor profile. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't love a lot of salt, I don't mind really salty pastrami, but if you want to keep things a little bit less salty, you can leave the salt out entirely of this dry rub. There's going to be plenty of salt in the meat itself from the brining process, so you can skip it in the dry rub if you're somebody that's a little bit salt shy. If you're like me and you like the salt, go for it. I'm not worrying too much here about any of the pickling spices left on my brisket from the brine. I'm just sprinkling my little seasoning blend that we made all across the top, the bottom, and the sides of my brisket flat. Now you'll see I have this on some really large pieces of plastic wrap and on a baking sheet. We're gonna wrap the seasoning around the pastrami itself on the baking sheet back into the fridge for another 2 days. This is gonna pull, again, some of the moisture out of the pastrami and really help set that seasoning on the outside. So we have a really nice crust that's gonna build as we smoke this. It goes in the smoker, 225 degrees. You can use your favorite hardwood here, but I think hickory and oak are both really great options. You wanna smoke this until it reaches 195. For me, this tends to take anywhere between 8 to 10 hours, again, depending on how thick your brisket was. This one was pretty thin, so it went a little bit closer towards that 8-hour mark. Any higher than 195 and I feel like it starts to shred apart. So that's really our sweet spot here.
Our pastrami brisket flat has come off of the smoker. I've let it rest for a little bit. I don't want to slice it while it's wicked hot because I don't want to lose juices everywhere. So I've let it come down to about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's a great place for slicing. If you want to eat the pastrami heated, I think this is a great way to go. If you are going to just slice it thin for sandwiches and keep all of it, I would let it cool down all the way to room temperature, then pop it in your fridge. It's much easier to thin slice cold meat than it is hot. But, I can't wait, so I'm going in while it's still warm. Okay, you can tell our pastrami is pink all of the way through. The grain is really tight. We've rendered out a lot of the fat in there. You can still see that nice layer of fat underneath, but this is ready for slicing thin and piling high onto sandwiches. The beauty of making it at home is you get to give yourself a little taste bite before you ever give it to anybody else. I am obsessed with pastrami. Give me a Reuben or pile this on top of a burger. I'm a happy, happy girl. That is salty, that is smoky, that is so delicious. The seasonings on the outside I feel like are so much bolder than what you would get from just as store-bought or deli pastrami. That is absolutely delicious. If you find yourself brave enough to tackle this type of backyard barbecue project, you gotta let me know how it turns out for you in the comments section below. I think this is a really, really fun cook with really delicious results. We'll see you next time.